Hello, guys. I'm Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. We're going to talk about DC Comics today. In particular, we're going to talk about Matt Fraction's Batman run. That the first issue came out, and I've heard some mixed reviews about it. But that's not what I'm wanting to talk about. And actually, I want to read this issue myself. I'm kind of a great big Killer Croc fan, so I'm kind of curious to see where that issue goes. And I'm hearing mixed signals about it, good and bad. But that's not what this video is necessarily about. Matt Fraction says every issue of Batman 2025 is a self-contained story. Each issue is a full beginning, middle, end, and builds as the series goes. Every issue is a new adventure, a new style, a new flavor, a new take. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because for people that don't know, there was a point in time in comics where every issue was a single issue. That was it, one and done. Spider-Man's a great example. First appearance of Doc Ock, one and done. First appearance of Lizard, one and done. Sandman, so on and so forth. The idea that comics would kind of span, a story would span multiple issues. When I was reading comics, maybe I had a couple issues that strung together, like 3 or 4 issues. But ideally, it was very common that you would get like a Spider-Man story that was maybe 2 issues. That's it. You know, you'd have a cliffhanger. Next issue, you got your resolution, and then on to the next adventure. And this is going to be a little bit of a side note of how we got here, and that is the trade collection, the collected edition. But do I think this is a good idea? Yes, actually, I do. I think it's a great idea. I think Grant Morrison even did this quite a bit in his All-Star Superman run, although a lot of people only read it in collected edition, but a lot of those issues were standalone issues with an overall story, but, you know, standalone adventures. So the Pa Kent issue is a great example of that in that run. Go look it up. But back to how did we end up where we broke the mold, where maybe 1 or 2 issues, one and done stories and stuff like that. It was actually, you know, the big boom that was in I guess the 2000s of the trade collection, and that meaning that you could take any run of, say, Nightwing to Batman, whatever, and you're able to slap the single issues together and put into Barnes & Noble and Borders at the time. Borders was another store for people that don't understand that reference. And this also got fueled and kicked up by Amazon selling books, which is interesting because that was that mainly what Amazon was there for. Now it sells everything. But Amazon selling books was, it kind of fueled, well, you could sell trades through Amazon. And there became this really big market where the initial orders on any type of trade basically was Borders, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon. Those 3 orders, talking to Paul Levitz back in the day, those orders made a big deal, a big dent in what they were able to actually sell. And so much so that DC Comics kind of looked at it as like, maybe I will lose money on, say, a Vertigo title just so we can make money on selling that trade. I've had editors constantly say they would lose money maybe on single issues of Fables to make a buttload of money on the trade. It became a weird publishing dynamic. Now, in the past, something like that, if it wasn't selling in single issues, it was just dead. You know, it was canceled. It was pulled off the news rack. Now, the reason why I think the single issue is a great idea, and I always use the Rhino, one of my favorite bad guys. And again, they led with Killer Croc on this. And again, another one of my favorite bad guys. You're not going to get like some great 5-issue story arc out of a character like Killer Croc necessarily, or even like the Rhino, right? But those are characters people love. When you look at Spider-Man and Batman, you want those characters there. This big muscle goon character that you can beat up or whatnot. And I'm sure you can go out here and do this deep dive on the psychology of Killer Croc or Rhino. But the reality is you just want to, you know, a fun one and done, maybe 2-issue run with it, maybe some cameos, stuff like that. Juggernaut's another good example. But what happened with this big boom is all of a sudden in the American comic book industry, and I remember editors telling me when I was looking at getting my foot in the door, and I was looking for fill-in issues. They're like, we don't have many fill-in issues anymore because everything now is rotating arcs with artists, and we can work on two Spider-Man runs at the same time on the same title by saying this one story is a 4 issue and this artist is drawing it, and at the same time we're already working on issues 5 through whatever with the second volume with the other artists. And this was actually Superman Batman Public Enemy was a really good example of that. While Ed McGuinness and Jeff Loeb were working on that, it wouldn't be long before Jeff Loeb and Michael Turner were working on the sequel to that on Superman Batman. And then they were already in the middle of that. Jeff Loeb was working with Carlos Pacheco. And that is how the industry reset itself, if you will, or postured itself with just assuming there would be X amount of trades sold. Now, that had a very different story dynamic or an effect on characters, because is there room for a Rhino story anymore? Because now every story has to be 4 issues. We can't just have a 2-issue or a Spider-Man annual that doesn't fit into a collection. Even though it would make money in a single issue, it would be looked at as like a waste of money in the long tail of the market, which would be trade collections. Here we are today. A new Batman #1 by Matt Fraction. They're busting these stories up to be single issue stories, which is very essential, I think, to new readers. And actually, I think it's very essential to readers' attention spans, that they are able to feel satisfied with a single issue. Because what would happen with the story arc is you end up, say Spider-Man versus Green Goblin, where you're going to get a lot of sizzle, a lot of razzle dazzle in that first issue. And then you're going to end up with a lot of talking head stuff going through issues 2 and 3 and 4. And if it seems like a strong seller, that's going to be a 5-issue, 6-issue trade sell. And a lot of filler material, a lot of drama or inner turmoil with the characters, and expecting people to tune in every month for an issue, when really maybe Spider-Man versus Green Goblin, that's really a 3-issue arc that's now being spread out to a 5-issue. Now, and again, I kind of want to reference what Matt Fraction's probably doing here. I'm going to keep referencing All-Star Superman, where there was an overall story arc of Superman's poisoned by the sun and his cells are dying because he flew into the center of the sun or flew too close and he absorbed too much energy. But there's single issues of him just doing different Superman stuff, like the issue where he goes to talk to Lex or interview Lex Luthor in prison. Single issue, one and done issue with Lex, although we'll see Lex later on. The issue, Jimmy Olsen turning into Doomsday, another single issue. And in the end, there is an overall arc, kind of loosely, but a lot of those issues are one and done, and very appetizing to the reader. Now, where we're at with the American comic book industry is it's funny DC Comics is doing this now. They're doing it with Batman, one of their top selling IPs, and they're doing it with a big writer, Matt Fraction, and this is a new reboot type thing. But they're doing this at a time when the American comic book industry, and this is sad to say, it's happening with the Marvel DC crossover. This stuff should have happened a long time ago. This isn't something that you should do at the industry's weakest. When the industry is recoiling and buckling off of bankruptcies, who has rights for new comic book day, comic book shops being chased after to be like to pay debt to Diamond, publishers being owed money from Diamond. Some of these B tier publishers like Dynamite and stuff, they only survive off of the profits that comic shops make selling Batman. I mean, this is, unfortunately, it could be too little too late in a lot of ways, but the fact that this is happening with one of DC's top selling characters and titles is very telling. And look, this company, if they see success, they will emulate it across the board. If this is well received and they actually see either sales stabilize, which after a new number one, I mean, the drop off is at least 30%. And the standard attrition following, it maybe doesn't stop hemorrhaging cells until about issue 3 or 4. So they're obviously tired of rebooting Batman, and at least they're doing this different. But I don't know. This is a test, I guess, on the weakest comic market I've seen in my entire life. And I don't know. To me, this should have happened 5-10 years ago. And I think the effects would look a lot better than they are. I do think this is the case of too little, too late, a day late, dollar short type thing. And it's sad. It's sad in a way, because in a lot of ways, some of these characters, you should be able to just grab any Batman issue and have fun with it. You shouldn't feel like I missed out. I'll just wait till the next reboot and jump on board. And that's kind of the pattern right now we're seeing with a lot of collectors is, do I need to get on this? Do I like who and what I'm seeing? I can wait 6 months and there's another reboot. And look, Marvel and Marvel Publishing, if this does pan out, or we start seeing like a stabilizing cells, I could see Marvel doing this with Spider-Man, to be honest. I think Batman, Spider-Man, a lot of these characters with popular rogues galleries, any character actually that has enough bad guys that you like, this suits them perfectly, because you end up with a revolving door of cast members, you know, shuffling through. And 12 issues of Batman, you could go through, you know, Clayface, Riddler, Two-Face, Scarecrow, all the way to Firefly, Killer Moth. You know, you could really fluff out a whole year of publication and not even touch mainstream villains like the Joker, right? And then that's not even counting like cameos in some of these issues. Maybe we got Robin here, maybe we got Batgirl in this issue, Nightwing in that issue. So I kind of like this a lot the more I think about it, but it's weird in a way to understand how we broke the pattern of these one and done single issue stories and have made great comic stories and supported great villains that wouldn't ever be able to be stretched out to a 6-issue story arc. And then how we end up where we are in the trade cycle of things. And at the lowest point, now it's like, let's go back to basics, the meat and potatoes, one and done stories with popular characters, popular bad guys. I'm curious, are you guys interested in this as comic readers? Are you the trade guy? You want more story to sit down and read a comic? Or are you cool if every 22 pages it's a new story? If you will, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notification. Also, don't forget, you can go over to 9 Lives Comics and get Inglorious Rex. We've got 2 volumes of it, Starlight Cats for the kids, all age comic. Everybody loves it. Extend. And our new campaign, Annatomic, Welcome to the Arena. We'll be, we're getting into the lettering stages of some of this. So we'll be taking this down probably in a few weeks. So make sure to secure your copy over here and get all the great stretch goals, all the trading cards, and all of the you know, I think there's even a free mini comic with each book backing that will hit at 140 if we hit that. So you could get a free mini comic for free just by purchasing 1 copy of Annatomic over here, which is our prequel series to Inglorious Rex. If you like kaiju boxing, you'll absolutely love Inglorious Rex. I'll leave you guys with a trailer for this and catch you guys again with another video.
If fighting was a god, I would worship him. I would bow to him. I would pray for victory. For he only grants opportunities. But behind every god lurks a devil. And the devil wants me to take a dive. My name is Annatomic. And this is how my legend was made.